The baby name I picked ended up being used for a dog. When we first found out we were expecting, everything felt like a whirlwind. There's a certain kind of excitement that comes with preparing for your first child, an odd mix of joy, anxiety, and the overwhelming realization that life as you know it is about to change forever. I was beyond thrilled. But one thing stood out among all the preparations: the baby name. I knew that picking a name for your child wasn't something you should rush. After all, this was the name that would follow them for the rest of their life, something that would define who they were, who they would become. It had to be perfect. Not too common, but not too out there either. Classic, but with a bit of flair. The kind of name that stands a test of time without sounding like something pulled out of a fantasy novel. At first, the name conversations were lighthearted. My wife, Emily, and I would toss around suggestions, most of them discarded after a few minutes of laughter. What about Liam? I suggested one evening, feeling a little hopeful. She shot me a look. It's too popular, she said, without even a second of hesitation. I raised an eyebrow. Isn't that the point? Everyone will like it. She rolled her eyes. I want our child to have a unique name, not one that sounds like half the boys in kindergarten are going to have. Fair enough, I thought. Emily had always been the creative one. I wasn't as picky, but I understood the importance of finding a name that felt special, something that would make our child stand out, not blend in. We narrowed it down to a short list over the next few weeks. Every night, we'd sit together on the couch, our laptop open in front of us, scrolling through lists of baby names. It became a routine, almost like a small ritual. I'd propose a name, she'd veto it. She'd suggest one, I'd immediately shoot it down. It went on like this for a while, until one evening, we both looked at each other and said, "What about Henry?" It was a moment of quiet certainty. Emily smiled, and I could tell right away that she liked it. Henry. It felt timeless, strong, and kind of charming in a way that made it easy to imagine our little boy growing up with that name. I felt a rush of relief. We had found it. This was going to be our son's name. "I love it," Emily said softly, and I could hear the excitement in her voice. "It's perfect." I agreed. We were finally on the same page. We spent the next few days imagining our son as little Henry. We even picked out a potential middle name, Arthur, to make the combination sound just right, Henry Arthur. There was something so perfect about it. It felt like the name belonged to him already. One evening, we were lying in bed talking about baby stuff when Emily turned to me with a mischievous grin on her face. She said, "I think I'm going to start calling him Henry now." I looked at her, surprised. "You mean now? Already?" She nodded, her hand resting on her growing belly. "Yeah, he's already a part of us, right? So why wait to call him by his name?" And from that moment on, it was official. Henry wasn't just a name on a list, it was our baby's name. We started talking about Henry constantly, like he was already here. We imagined the nursery, the first time we'd hold him in our arms, and of course, how we would call out to him, "Henry, time for dinner," or "Henry, don't go near that." The excitement kept building. We were ready for our little Henry, and there was no turning back. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't have possibly imagined, was that the name we had fallen in love with wouldn't stay as ours for long. As the months went on, Emily's belly grew, and our excitement for the arrival of little Henry intensified. The nursery was nearly finished, with soft yellow walls, a crib with a cute mobile hanging above it, and tiny onesies folded neatly in drawers. We had our baby shower, where friends and family showered us with gifts, most of them carefully chosen with Henry's name in mind. Every gift, every small gesture felt like a confirmation that our little boy was really coming, and we were ready for him. In the midst of this whirlwind of excitement, Emily and I started talking about our future. We'd talk about the way we'd raise Henry, what kind of parents we wanted to be, and even the small details, like whether or not we'd let him have a dog. I'd always wanted a dog, but with the baby on the way, I wasn't sure if it was the right time. Emily, on the other hand, had grown up with dogs and had always wanted one. Eventually, we both agreed that once we settled into our new routine as parents, we'd start looking for a family dog. About a week later, Emily came home from a trip to the pet store with a big smile on her face. "I found the perfect dog," she said, practically bouncing with excitement. "Really?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Already? We haven't even really talked about what kind of dog we want." Emily's grin widened. "Trust me, I know he's the one." She led me outside to the backyard where, sitting by the fence, was a small, scruffy little dog. He was wagging his tail, looking up at us with those big, puppy dog eyes that made you feel like you couldn't say no. His name is Max, she said. I think we should adopt him. Max. That was the dog's name. He was adorable, and in that moment, I could see why Emily had fallen for him. I knew how much she loved animals, and I could tell that this little dog was already stealing her heart. We talked about it for a bit, deciding that it would be a good idea to bring Max into our home. After all, the timing was right. We were settling into our new life, and once Henry arrived, we could have both the baby and a dog to share our lives with. What I didn't know, what didn't even cross my mind at the time, was that Emily had started getting attached to the name Max as well. A few days later, I came home to find Max running around the house, wagging his tail, and I could hear Emily's voice calling out from the other room. Max, come here, buddy. Max. I repeated, confused. Why are you calling him Max? His name is Henry. Emily turned to me, her face breaking into a smile. I know, but I just think Max suits him better. He's small and full of energy, and Max just feels like the right name for him. I felt a flash of annoyance. But you chose the name Henry for our baby. We agreed on it. I know, but it's just a name, Emily said lightly, her tone trying to dismiss the seriousness of the situation. Why can't we just let Max have it? I tried to hide my frustration, but it wasn't easy. The name Henry had been ours. It had become a part of how we imagined our child. It felt like a bond between Emily, me, and our soon-to-be son. And now, hearing it applied to a dog of all things left me feeling a little betrayed. Emily, I don't know about this, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. I really don't want to see our baby's name go to a dog. It's important to me. Emily paused, her eyes softening. I get it. I do. But Max is just a dog. It's not like we're taking Henry away from you. It's just a little thing. A silly name. A silly name? I didn't think so. To me, it wasn't just a name. It was the first thing we'd agreed on together for our child, and it meant something deep. And now it felt like Emily was trivializing it. I tried to push the feelings aside, thinking maybe I was overreacting, but a knot was forming in my stomach every time I heard her call the dog by that name. For the next few days, it became clear that Max was settling into the family. Emily was in love with him, and I had to admit he was a sweet dog. But the more time passed, the more unsettled I felt. Every time Emily called the dog Max, my mind couldn't help but associate it with our name, Henry. It felt like our future was being slowly chipped away at, like the name I'd picked so carefully was being taken from me, piece by piece, for something that was, well, just a dog. I couldn't bring myself to tell Emily how much this bothered me. Every time I tried, she dismissed it like it was no big deal. It's just a name, Dan. Come on, don't be so serious about it. But to me, it was more than that. As the weeks passed, I kept telling myself that I was being irrational, that it was just a dog, just a name. But the more I thought about it, the more it gnawed at me. It wasn't just the name, it was the principle of it. Emily and I had been so sure about Henry, and now it felt like the universe had shifted, and the name was slipping through my fingers. I began to notice that Emily didn't seem to understand why I was upset. To her, Max was just a dog. She'd tell me, he's not our son, Dan. It's just a little name we're calling a puppy. But it wasn't just a name. To me, it represented something deeper. It was part of the life we were going to build together, our child, our family, our future. Henry wasn't just a word, it was a dream. One evening, we were sitting on the couch, relaxing after a long day of work, when I heard it again. Max, come here, buddy. Emily called out in that familiar sing-song voice, a tone I'd grown used to over the last few weeks. Max, of course, came bounding over, tail wagging, and sat down at her feet, looking up at her with those big brown eyes. Emily leaned down, scratching his head, and I felt a knot tighten in my chest. She smiled at him, lost in the moment. I couldn't hold it in anymore. Emily, I started, my voice barely above a whisper. Can we please talk about the name? She glanced up from Max and raised an eyebrow. What about it? Why? Why is he still called Max? I asked, the frustration I had been holding back finally spilling over. I thought we agreed on Henry. That was the name we chose for our baby, for our child. And now you're calling the dog by that name. Emily sighed, setting Max aside and turning her attention to me. Dan, you're making this into a bigger deal than it is. It's just a name. Max is a dog. Henry is our son. There's no reason to get upset. I could hear her trying to calm me down, but it only made me more upset. It felt like she didn't get it. It wasn't just about a name, it was about how I felt in that moment, how it seemed like the one thing we had agreed on was being taken from us. It's not just about the name, Em. It's about the way we're treating it. You know how important this is to me. Henry was the first thing we agreed on, the first thing that made us feel like we were really having a baby. And now, every time I hear Max, it's like that's being erased. It's like it doesn't matter. Emily looked at me, her expression softening. Dan, I don't want to hurt you. I really don't. But you've got to understand, it's not a big deal. It's just a name, and Max has grown into it. I shook my head. That's not the point. You've turned it into something else. It was our name. It was supposed to be special, just for our son. For a long moment, there was silence between us. Max was lying on the floor now, chewing on a toy, oblivious to the tension building between us. Emily's face softened as she looked down at him, and I could tell she was torn. She didn't want to upset me, but she also didn't see the problem the way I did. I just don't get Dan, she said quietly, almost to herself. It's just a dog. The words stung more than I expected. It was just a dog, I thought. It felt like that's how she saw it, like it was just some insignificant little detail. But for me, it was so much more than that. Every time she called him Max, it was like I lost a little piece of the dream we had built together. The name, Henry, was supposed to be a bridge between the two of us, a way to bond over our child, something we could share. I had to walk away. I couldn't keep talking about it without getting too upset. I stood up and went into the kitchen, pouring myself a glass of water to calm down. Emily followed me shortly after, and I could see the apology in her eyes, but didn't make it any better. I didn't mean to hurt you, Dan, she said softly. I just thought we'd be okay with it. I'm not okay with it, I replied, feeling the sharpness of the words as soon as I said them. You don't get it, Emily. You really don't. She reached out, placing a hand on my arm, but I pulled away before I could stop myself. I don't know how to fix this, I said, my voice cracking. It feels like everything is changing, and I don't know how to stop it. I could see the hurt in her eyes now, too. She wasn't angry, she was just confused. We'll figure it out, Dan. I don't want you to feel like this. I really don't. But in that moment, I didn't know if we could. The gap between us seemed wider than ever. I had thought we were on the same page, but now, it felt like we were living in different worlds. And with every Max that came from her lips, I felt farther and farther away from the dream we had shared of raising our child, Henry. The days that followed were tense. Emily tried to reassure me, but the more she called the dog Max, the harder it was to shake the feeling of betrayal. Every time I heard it, it felt like a little more of the bond we'd shared over the name Henry slipped away. It wasn't just a name, it was a symbol of everything we had dreamed about together for our future. But I didn't know how to make Emily see that. To her, it was simple. A dog's name, a casual thing. But to me, it felt like she was dismissing something that meant the world to me. A few days after the argument, I found myself sitting on the couch late at night, alone in the silence. Emily had gone to bed early, exhausted from a long day of work, and I was left with my thoughts that were spiraling. I couldn't stop thinking about Henry. I couldn't stop thinking about the way Emily had seemed so sure that Max was the name for the dog, as if nothing else mattered. And then it hit me. I wasn't just upset about the name. I wasn't just upset about Max. This was about something deeper, something I hadn't wanted to face. It was about how Emily and I had always been able to compromise, always been able to find common ground, and now it felt like that wasn't enough anymore. It felt like Emily was slipping away in little ways I couldn't put my finger on until now. The baby was coming. We were about to embark on this huge chapter of our lives together, but everything felt different. I couldn't help but feel like there was this growing distance between us. The next morning, I woke up to find Emily in the kitchen, preparing breakfast. She was humming a tune to herself, clearly in a good mood. I wanted to be happy, too. I wanted to put all the tension behind us. But it wasn't that simple. Hey, I said softly, walking into the kitchen. Can we talk? She stopped what she was doing and turned around, her face lighting up with a smile. Of course. What's up? I hesitated for a moment, not sure where to begin. I've been thinking a lot, and I need to understand why the name Henry doesn't mean as much to you as it does to me. I need to know that you see how important this is. She put down the spatula and stepped toward me, her expression shifting into something more serious. Dan, I do see how important it is to you. But you have to understand, it's just a name. It's not like we're taking away Henry from you. I'm still excited to have our son. I promise you, this doesn't change anything. But it does change something, I said, my voice growing a little more desperate. It feels like you don't care about it the way I do. You're so casual about it, like it doesn't matter. I do care about it. Emily's voice raised slightly. But this is about Max, Dan. This is about him, not about our baby's name. I ran my hands through my hair, trying to keep my emotions in check. I just don't know how to explain it to you. Every time I hear you call the dog Max, I feel like you're erasing something that was supposed to be special to us. Emily took a deep breath, looking at me as if she was trying to understand. I didn't mean to make you feel that way, she said softly. But Max and Henry are two different things. It's not like I'm trying to take your name away. It's just a name for a dog. I didn't think it would bother you this much. I didn't know how to explain it to her anymore. She couldn't see it the way I did. The weight of the situation seemed to grow heavier by the minute, and I could feel the gap between us widening with every passing second. Maybe I'm overreacting, I muttered, more to myself than to her. But it's just hard, Em. I don't know what's going on, but everything feels like it's falling apart. Her expression softened. Dan, look at me. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. We're still having our baby. This is just one little thing. We'll figure it out. You don't have to do this alone. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something inside me told me that this wasn't just about the name. It wasn't just about Max. This was about the way our lives were changing and how we were both handling it. We had spent so long dreaming of this moment, of bringing a child into the world, but now it felt like we were drifting apart in ways I hadn't expected. I don't know if we're figuring this out, Em, I said quietly. I don't know if we're okay. Her eyes filled with something soft, something close to sadness. We will be, Dan. We will. But in that moment, I wasn't sure we would.